तुम खा लो, हम बाद में खाएंगे। श्योर है।
Good morning or good afternoon.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, Dean.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm good. This is Saurabh here. And good evening, Dr. Singh.
Good evening, sir. Good evening.
Good to connect again.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay.
We will, another 3 minutes, we will have other participants as well. So we can have a little quick chat. We will also go live quickly. So Dean, great to connect with you. I mean, like, I've heard a lot until we keep working together with Dr. Nathan, and I really appreciate what you and Chancellor are doing with Edu Alliance, and really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been most enjoyable. Senthil and I have known each other since I went to the UAE. Matter of fact, he was my boss when I first went over to higher colleges of technology, and we've stayed friends and then eventually partners starting the company. Good heavens, now well over 7 years ago. So
awesome. Really look forward to greater conversation and collaboration with you. We'll connect for that as well.
Understand.
I think we will have Mr. Shaukat from Aga Khan University, and also Professor Mona Nasr. She's also joining. Hi.
Good evening. Very nice.
Good evening. So, welcome everyone to this, and we will quickly go live in a minute. This is also live streamed on a couple of channels. We'll also produce visual content from this conversation. That's what we've been doing from the educators this week. And all that is going to be published on our social media channels and also on our website for reaching greater audience, in short snippets of the whole conversation, so that a lot of 1 hour, 2 hour videos, they get boring. We have been doing that, right? So Zoom sessions, 1 hour, 2 hour, and we keep seeing a lot of those live streams on different channels. I think, okay, so I think we have Professor Nasr as well, Professor Mona Nasr. So the quorum is complete. Welcome.
Welcome.
So pleasure to have you here. So we'll kickstart a session for the first session, the first webisode of Educators this week. Welcome, everyone. We at World Assessment Council, who believe in celebrating digital, and we have been relentlessly working with educators, institutions, universities from around the world, and helping them how to understand the importance of online, digital, and so many other names that really cropped up recently, right from blended to HyFlex to whatnot, hybrid and everything else. Today's session on this Educators this week focuses typically about what is happening at a massive scale globally. A lot of institutions, universities who were really apprehensive about it. There was a great resistance around implemented blended model of learning or building digital capacities. Everybody thought that what we've been doing for the last 100 years in the brick and mortar way or the traditional method of education will probably be implemented for the next 10, 20, 30 years. But I think the way digital has impacted every other aspect of our lives, whether it is finance, whether it is our day-to-day e-commerce or anything else, I think education was long overdue. We really wanted to do that, but it was only happening in pockets. Visionary institutions, visionary universities who understood the importance of moving from paper to online, not only just for an urgent delivery of going online, which happened because of the COVID, but as part of strategy, as part of enhancing the learner experience, as part of enhancing the educator experience. And I think with that context, I'll open the house today for a greater discussion with eminent educators here. So I'll start by introducing everyone, and then quickly others can also introduce themselves. So we have Mr. Dean Hoke. He is the co-founder and managing director for North America for EduAlliance. I also work with EduAlliance and with his co-founder, Dr. Nathan, on differently, and also for my startup, Adorer, as well. And we also have collaborated a lot on the World Assessment Council Forum. Then we have Dr. Mona Nasr, CIO of Helwan University, Cairo. I think it will be interesting to know what is happening in Egypt. Then we also have Mr. Shaukat Khan, who is the global CIO for Aga Khan University, which has presence in Pakistan, Asia, Africa, and the UK. And we have Dr. Bhanu Pratap Singh, who is the Vice Chancellor of Maharishi University of Information Technology, India, making great strides in blended and digital learning. So welcome, everyone, once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I think the first question that we would like to address, because when we talk about blended learning, first of all, let's try to understand what is blended learning. So let's try to get to the what, why, and how of blended learning. So Dean, I would come to you, help our audience, help us understand what is blended learning and what have institutions understood about it, or what are myths around it?
Well, blended learning, I think in the simplest terms, is a combination of live learning, but also the use of the internet, learning management systems, and teachings to students, whether they're at a distance or they're no more than 100 feet away, in terms of learning. Example, blended learning could well be used in a regular classroom situation. Instead of possibly students, let's say, going 3 or 4 days a week, they may well be going one less day and using the content that's being provided by the professor, and be able to supplement that, to be able to use that as part of their teaching process. It also can mean at times, anytime, anywhere. So, and it is not a new concept. Certainly in the United States, we've been using this since the mid 1990s, at least at the beginning, but it is evolving, and it's evolving quickly.
Wonderful. Coming to you, Shaukat, like, what do you see? Like, of course, we understand that blended learning is not a new concept. We know it in bits and pieces with right from those days where we had those very shabby dashboards to wonderful LMSs and AI and whatnot today in our modules. What do you see? What do you see as a change from 10 years ago to today, and especially post-COVID, in terms of the understanding about blended learning?
Thank you, Saurabh, and thank you for the World Assessment Council for inviting and hosting this and player meeting all the panelists. So I think it's an interesting part because the impact of COVID-19 has been changing for many. However, a significant positive, COVID-19 has been very, very challenging for institutions, for people, for actually almost for everyone, right? However, we have seen a significant positive outcome has been the acceleration of digital transformation. And digital transformation has a strategic priority at almost all institutions, whether it's academia, whether it's hospitals, whether it's in any of the domains, right? And especially for the last year or more. However, in the recent months, we have seen the pace of change increase with the adoption of new technologies quicker than we previously expected. And actually, COVID-19 actually resetted the world, especially the institutions, because there is no one who is expert on how to deal with this situation, right? Everybody was thrown in at the same time, and all the institutions actually, they were figuring out by doing, they were learning also what works. For example, I'm connected, even though University of Central, Al-Khan University, we are operating in Pakistan, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Afghanistan, and the UK. But I'm on a regular contact with the CIOs from US, from UK, from other European countries to learn about how they are coping with all those things. And the questions actually and the discussions we are having with them is almost same as what we are facing here. So we are in a situation where the COVID resetted all of us. And then that also means it gave us equal opportunity to excel. Because whether or not we were using 10 years ago or 5 years ago before, it's changing now. If you are not using the technology now, then you are out of business actually. For example, 2 years ago when this started, we were forced to actually go online completely within a day's notice, 2-3 day notice, right? Because the countries actually they announced lockdowns. And there is no other way, even for a working environment also. We have seen a lot of resistance about working from home or accessing infrastructure from home. But because of the new norm or new reality, that was the only possible way to continue the business. So I think it actually gave us the new direction. I said the new norm. Blended learning was very nice to have 5 years ago. 10 years ago or 2 years ago even, right? Now it's needed. And especially with the COVID point of view, where everything was online, and now things are getting, some parts getting better, some parts is still uncertainty is there. But what we learned from it is that if we use the technology with our traditional face-to-face, that would be a beautiful combination. Because the technology, of course, it works like it worked in the last 2 years, but it's very, very difficult to only go with the online mode. It's humanly extremely important to have this face-to-face interaction also. And then that's where, especially the areas where we are actually operating in the mountains area, where there's an issue with the electricity, with the internet, with a lot of logistic part, that's where this learning, blended learning actually helps, because you have online availability of all the material when you have the infrastructure available, and then of course you have a chance to go and meet with your teaching staff and learn and interact with your colleagues. So I think we are in a new area where it's not that easy to, not that difficult to actually convince anyone to use technology. Now everybody understands the importance of it. I think now the importance is that how seamless it should be. That's where the new importance is. It's not whether we should use or not use, how seamless, so that it can be as a normal thing for us to use going forward.
True. So I think, we all have understood that why is not the question anymore. Everybody understands that this is important. So convincing anybody on going digital or implementing, capacities which help you with blended learning is definitely not a tough task anymore. What is more important is how we are doing it. A course, because of COVID, every institution, even the smallest of schools, everybody were forced to go online. So they implemented it. So of course, they were, hasty, adoptions of doing a Zoom or a Meet or Team, and then examinations happening on Google Forms and WhatsApp and email and everything else that we could use. But then that was a very fragmented approach. That has happened a lot. And I think now is the time to realize that, can this be a part of strategy? I think one of the biggest myths that we have around blended learning is that people think that it is either face-to-face or blended or online. So it's not like face-to-face versus online. I think these are very complementary. Even when you're talking about your current students who are part of your university, your institution, I think providing them with all your content, all your courses, and taking them and giving them a whole digital experience, even when they're coming to in-person classrooms, I think that holds tremendous paramount importance, because then you're really reducing a lot of educator load. You are definitely moving away from paper, and a lot of operational efficiency can be achieved. And there are hosts of other things which we'll definitely discuss as we go forward. But that note, I would like to have Professor Nasr. What's happening with your university, and what's in general the take in around institutions and universities in Egypt? Welcome as well on the show.
Yes, thank you for giving me this chance to join this panel concerning in Egypt. And like any other country, we are accepting the new norm and adapt the educational strategy between ongoing pandemic and accepting life with the new norms. There are few challenges faced by educational institution and academic and the students. The institution and individual adapt to the new norms and the future of education to provide technical assistance to aid the pedagogically, especially in case of providing some sort of enhanced, proctored, AI-driven, secure, scalable assessment using learning management system. We also try to offer solution for the educational and many of our faculties. The educator have many tools like learning management system, student information system, which has capabilities, and we are trying to see many other applications in the market to fulfill the advanced feature, which not covered nowadays, like we need to cover these points: the AI automated identification verification for the student and their recognition, the recording and analyzing of the data for the students and the conversation between the students and the educator. Also, how can we monitor exactly what is going on online exam with accuracy? We need also to add to our platform some feature like advanced reporting and analytical capabilities. But for the beginning, we started by to move to blended learning and inspiring our educator to refine the traditional rules. We train the staff to shift their focus from delivering just knowledge to the used application, those to spend to more have instruction concerning a person, emphasizing on learning through supervised activities, and adapt to some calling training for the blended learning, working well in both classroom and on the learning management system and student information system. Our instructor heading the digital content with more concentration, does not throwing all the direct instruction in the classroom just only, but keeping what is going both face-to-face mode and the digital one format.
Absolutely. I completely agree with what you say. Of course, there are multiple ways in which blended learning has impacted. And there's a great aftertaste of when we started doing more and more of digital implementation because of COVID. Otherwise, definitely COVID accelerated the whole thing. So my question, before I move to Professor Singh, my question is, if there is one thing that you really love about digital implementation in learning or blended learning, what will you choose? Just one thing.
Thank you, Saurabh. And greeting to everyone. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to put my views in this platform. Blended learning is the demand after the post-pandemic condition is very well. There are a number of ways that the learning more student-centric rather than teacher-centric and helps to cater to individual requirement of a student in many ways. Allow the teacher to provide individual assistance where required by using a combination of digital instruction and one-on-one on FaceTime. Student can work on their own with new concept with free teacher up to support individual student who may need individualized attention, rather than allow teachers to spend more of their time helping student in challenging area or going deeper in content area already mastered by the student. One more, allow student to take up additional courses apart from the prescribed curriculum so as to help in placement, career advancement, or strengthening weaker areas. The use of information and communication technology have been found to be improve student attitude toward learning.
Professor Singh, I had one question. In fact, my earlier question was directed to Professor Mona Nasr. But anyways, I'll take that question from you, and then I'll move to Mona Nasr and then Dean and others. So my question is this, sir. So talk about from perspective of Indian universities. Now, do you see that earlier when the kind of, the mode of delivery that we had, and now when universities have started to build digital capacities and implement blended learning and do hundreds of other things to have a greater digital presence, do you see we going back to what we were doing 5 years ago or just before the pandemic? Do you see we can go back to the same ecosystem, or do you see that without digital there is no future for universities?
Sir, that is the correct condition, that without the digital there is no future in the coming days, because just like you have seen in Omicron condition is increasing day by day all over the world, and with respect to not Omicron or COVID conditions, in the future perspective also, every student have to cope up with the blended mode of learning, and faculty members and institution and university also, because this is the demand of the era. Because we have not go beyond for 5 years ago, what are the face-to-face? There are number of advantages in the digital mode of learning, or we can say in the blended learning. So this is the demand of the era, or this is the demand of the coming times. It may be post-pandemic conditions, it may be another condition, because with the help of blended learning, there are number of ample amount of opportunity with the student, as well as institution, as well as faculty members, to go in a limited part of their knowledge enhancing with respect to their own level, with respect to their student level.
Correct. Okay, coming back to Professor Mona Nasr, yeah, my question was for you earlier. What is that one thing that you you're really happy about blended learning?
I'm happy for blended learning because we use the welfare and the technology all around us to help us to pass from this crisis. And using the welfare and using the technology and skipping all the obstacles to try to manage our life, our personal life, in addition to our educational life. We manage both of them, taking care of our families and taking care of our friends during the starting of the pandemic the pandemic period, and also taking care of our students. maybe the student at the first of time, they are stuck at house, and because they are very, they are not happy at the beginning, and after that, they make encourage, so because they have an assignment must be delivered at a specific time, so they must submitting the assignment in a specific time, try to open the camera during our lecture, try to make an assessment and ask the student during the lecture to evaluate each student per student. So we use that technology in passing our problem.
Okay, thank you.
I am happy for not for the pandemic itself, but from giving us the chance that we can try to balance our life, because most of our time at the university, we are stuck at meeting. Every meeting, the faculty council, the department council, also each of them maybe take about minimum 2 hours. At the time being, we can take the council of faculty council and university council during we are driving our car, passing from one place to another. So we use the technology to do many things at the same time.
Of course, true. I mean, like, with technology, with blended learning, it's not, we always talk about student learning experience and how their experience enhances, but I think it's also important how it enhances the experience of educators, makes them more process efficient, also the admins and everyone else around. I think that's definitely one of the takeaways. Dean, my question now, and this is going to be very informative for everyone else as well, not only from the US perspective, but on a global perspective. What's your take on, in a post-corona world, I don't know when it's going to happen, but whenever that's happening, in a post-corona world or post-COVID world, I mean, like, where do you see blended and technology going? Where do you see the adoption? What are the trends that you see here?
Well, besides the United States, which I think we've been heading towards this trend, I also work in Africa and I also work in the Middle East. And I'll tell you one thing that I have seen. There had been resistance to various forms of blended learning or distance learning from government as well as universities, primarily over the issues of would students still come to class, cheating, to various things. And we've heard that for a long time. We're past that now. And they've had the experience that governments and universities had to change on them within, as you said, 2 days. In the United Arab Emirates, they had 1 week. And it brought out new things. And one of the positives that it brought out is that it helped develop an expansion of styles of teaching, which I think has been an unintended consequence of this, and a very positive one. All of a sudden, we are now seeing, in some cases, faculty members who have been waiting for this moment and have found new ways to teach, to be able to engage their students. For some students who may be a little shy in the classroom, this has empowered them to do more. What I always call backbenchers, the people that are always kind of in the back. So when the question is asked, they don't exactly put up their hand. But if you give them an opportunity in a post-world of blended or distant, they come out and they engage more.
True.
So we have seen that sort of thing. Now, at the same
Very
time,
interesting. That's very interesting. It's very interesting because we do have different kind of students. So one who are very comfortable with the face-to-face, and the one who really are very, happy and very comfortable in scenarios, which is more like online. And then, of course, ones who are happy with both the scenarios. So I think we are able to address everyone through this model.
I think so. I think one of the things, though, that has concerned me a little bit is, like I said, I've been working in Africa, specifically in Nigeria, Uganda, and I'm still worried about the core infrastructure issues as much as anything else. Not the university so much, but power grids, accessibility to the internet, and quite frankly, the lack of preparation that most of them had in terms of learning management systems and an absolute non-existence of training of their faculty members. So one of the points I'd like to say in terms of caution to universities, you must begin now to integrate this into your overall curriculum design and your training of your own faculty members so that they are more comfortable in using this expansion that exists. And we're seeing in some places they're doing very well with it. We're also seeing in some places where it had not been considered, it has been a real problem. So that's, from my perspective, what I've seen.
True. So which means, in a sense, that there have to be people, it's not about early adopters or people who would see and then see how it's going to, it is imperative. You don't do it, you're going to die. It's something like that. So I think, it becomes so important for your own, sustenance. If you're not there, I mean, like probably you will have issues and you will be irrelevant probably in 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the line. So I think it's probably reached, it's probably reached at that level. Mr. Khan, my question to you is, what do you see? So institutions, we all understand that institutions need to build digital capacities. Of course, there are other challenges which are not in our hands. For instance, internet issues in the country, access and all of that. But I think as an institution, creating a great, smooth experience for educators and students and learners and everyone else who's part of the ecosystem, like great access on mobile experience is very important. People really don't they think that they can really ignore that. But I think, that's very paramount. That's crucial to your whole digital success. What do you think? My question is, what do you think will happen to the institutions or universities who really neglect adopting digital and who think that they can continue to doing what they have been doing? And let's say there are some very, very successful universities. They have some amazing student recruitment happening every year. They have great brand currently. Do you think that if they really do not build these digital capacities, will they be irrelevant 4 years, 5 years, or will they lose some edge?
I think it's an interesting question. So I think the immediate answer could be maybe they are closed from last 2 years if they are not adopting digital part, right? Because there was no other ways, because the entire world, at least most of the world, was actually locked down, and the only universities were running who have the digital capacity, or at least they've tried. And that's right what Dean Hoke said, that many were not prepared, many don't know how to operate these things, right? And they were doing the learning, and there is a huge capacity, huge potential of improvement. But if you ask me, if they are not ready, or they don't want to accept this reality that without the digital they can actually survive, then I think they just need to go on a couple of years holidays at least, because this is not going to work. Because the students, there is a and then just to answer one of your questions to Professor Bhanu Nasr, about one thing about the advantages of digital part is, for me, is accessibility. It gives the accessibility for poorer. It gives the accessibility for all the people who are shy in the class, for example, did not mention, and then different type of for example, in the traditional part, if you lose your class today, for example, right, by any reason, then that's it. You lost that lecture. With the new introduction of all the digitalization, and especially with the digital blended learning or the digitalization, you always have the opportunity to go back to that class and then hear what the professor says, what the discussions were, and what the assignments were, right? You always have that accessibility. So this is an additional privilege also to any student, and all students actually is getting. So I think for my suggestion would be that all the institutions, and then just before going to the suggestion, I will just also want to mention that we are operating, Al Khan University is operating in some of the challenging areas. Yeah? And the biggest one, using AI and all those things, of course, those are the trends and we are focusing on that. But then there are some basics we need to take care of, for example, the electricity, the local infrastructure, the accessibility to the internet, so that they can start leveraging on the digitalization. What is the role of institution? The role of institution is to highlight again and again and again with the authorities, with the civil society, that this is an important area, and regularly engage in the dialogue to make this as a priority. And thanks to the new situation, actually, it made already clear to many institutions, including authorities, that how digitalization is important. So I think that's how I see this one. And for the institutions who are actually not ready, or who are not still accepting that they need to adopt the digitalization, I think it would be really, really challenging, because the world is now getting used to of this new norm, where if not completely online, if not completely digitized, then the hybrid version, the blended part, is going to survive, is going to increase. And this will be I see this as a future with a lot of potential improvement in these areas.
Sure. Okay, so which takes me to the next part of this. And this is something which is very close to my heart, and I've been working on this because I've been sort of an assessment enthusiast as well. I've always believed that institutions, universities, I've been to some of the best institutions, even when I was at Harvard, and if my faculty would have to take a class test, they would give us a paper. So I would have to take those tests or the quizzes on paper, and the poor faculty or the teacher would have to evaluate them over the next 2-3 days, go back with those bunch of 30, 40 and think about essay type answers, how big that could be. And then you have to archive all of that. So my observation is, and this is of course what's true, educational institutions around the world, they have been the biggest consumers of paper till date. I think they continue to do so. Think about it. A simple math, one university, 10,000 students, and they have to do 10, 20 examinations in probably one semester. You're talking about hundreds and thousands of paper, archiving of those papers because you need them for a lot of compliances and other purposes. Do you think that that's one specific piece that should definitely go away? All our examinations, class tests, surprise tests, everything should happen online on our platform, in our dashboard. The student should have access to all of them. If they can be auto-evaluated, especially the quizzes part and multi-choice questions and all of that, if it is auto-evaluated, it saves a lot of teacher time. And then even essay type, there are AI. We're also working on building AI, which can really help even essay type exams. The biggest thing is you save a lot of your investment on paper. You go green. You are able to save your teacher's time. There are more analytics. I mean, like, there are hundreds of analytics that you can really get when you're building your own mastery assessment or continuous assessment, and hundreds of other things that you do in a particular course to understand on the rubrics, how the student is performing on those rubrics and learning key areas. So what do you think? Why are we still doing our exams, quizzes, and everything else on paper? Why? When will it 100% go away? That's my question. Dean, starting with you.
I'm not sure it'll go 100% away, but I do see a growing trend towards that. Again, I'm going to use an example of a group that I personally think is much worse than educators about using paper, and that's government. Government puts out more paper than anybody else. It doesn't matter what country we're in. Yet, I've seen encouraging things. For example, in Dubai, they have set a priority of going paperless. And at least they have claimed over the past few days they have done so. Now, whether they have or not, we shall see. But at the same time, what it does say is if there's a commitment, and I do believe it has to be at top levels, not only at the universities themselves, but quite frankly, I think at ministries of education, I think government themselves, to say this is the way we're going to go. Furthermore, we will accept it this way. I think most of you know as CIOs, when you have been working with ministries and you're doing accreditation papers and you're doing things like that, they generally want it in paper, not necessarily electronically. There has to be a broader sense of that. I think the universities would be prepared. It would take them time, but yes. And I think it would be good, obviously, for the environment. And I just think it's just a new tool in terms of how you do things as an educator. So it's adaptability, which will happen. It always does.
Sure. So this is also on the cards, and this will happen maybe in a slow or a phased manner, but it is going to happen eventually. Okay. Professor Singh, what do you think? Like, why are, I think a lot of Indian universities, some of them, we work with so many of them. Why are we still doing paper-based exam? I know during the Corona, during the COVID, we really, adopted proctoring and tools and a lot of examination solutions. We also helped so many universities adopt proctoring solutions. In fact, we also did close to about 20 million exams during the COVID period itself. What about after COVID? Why are we still doing exams, class tests, quizzes, everything on paper?
Gaurav, there are number of limitations for the blended mode of learning or examination pattern. Enough resources requirement, good IT infrastructure, availability of technology and gadget with the student also, or self-motivation in the student for independent learning. There are the number of factors for the Indian universities. They are lacking in some sort of resources, IT infrastructure in remote areas. These are the major factors. Nowadays, we are going with the paper examination pattern in most of...
No, sir, I'm not talking about remote exams. I'm talking about examinations and quizzes and class tests of your students who are coming in person to your classes. Why should that happen? Like, why should a surprise test or a class, why can't it happen on mobile? Every student who comes to your class has a mobile. They have access to internet. I'm sure every university gives access to the internet to their students. You have computer labs. You can hold your examination in computer labs. My question is that why should you still continue to use paper, still waste a lot of teacher hours in evaluating all of that when we have technology to do that for us? We save money. In fact, this is more cost effective as well. If you do a little math, you will see it's more cost effective.
Definitely, you are right, Saurabh, but there are number of limitations for the, just like in the some sort of resources also in IT infrastructure also, because in every Indian university, we are lacking in some sort of resources and IT infrastructure in remote areas. But even then, there are number of platforms that number of universities are trying to do the papers or question papers or examination pattern or evaluation system. They are going on for the online mode, but there are still there are some more time required for the infrastructure and these facility or online proctoring also for the paper question paper also. These are the number of limitations in Indian universities. They are doing very well in that side also, but there should be some time requirement also.
True. I understand, because I think the biggest thing is the learning curve for teachers and educators to adopt to that. Right. I'm sure we all understand the value to it. I think the only thing is implementation piece of it. If we have greater tools, better tools, affordable tools, which is very important for a lot of Indian or university ecosystem around the world, if we have, and then of course the digital infrastructure to support that, I think we can quickly switch. Professor Mona Nasr, what do you think about examinations and everything else 100% going online?
Concerning replying to the same question, why university stuck with using the paper-based examination? Because many factors. Maybe during the semester, the student has been evaluated by different ways. Some of them may be online, because like some sort of MCQ and true and false, but some question must be answered like an essay question. Most of the learning management system not have the evaluation well concerning the essay question. Another point of view, some courses like architecture and many courses like drawing and some sort of that cannot be evaluated well on the online system. Another reply also, because every student, every university has a quality unit. The quality unit must have for each student and each course the student that have the greatest grade and the lowest grade, and a file for the student. For every student must have some sort of a paper written by his hand. Do you get it? For that, the type of the question, number one, the type of the course, number two, the quality department that has some sort of requirement. This requirement may be related somehow to a paper-based. But concerning using the technology and the welfare, I prefer to evaluate the student using the learning management system and the student information system and some sort of that. Also because that transferring of the bacteria and microbes using the, if I have in one course 200 students and I'm going to correct and evaluate the student paper-based. So I have to wear gloves to sign this paper. For me, during this crisis, it's something so horrible. So I prefer to do that, but in one of the exams during the semester, I related to the paper-based.
Interesting. I mean, like we have to wear gloves to evaluate those question papers. But anyways, I think that's what COVID has given us. But I think, yes, I do agree with you. Of course, there are certain areas, certain examination. Of course, it depends on what is the kind of examination do we have. So I think partially, a lot of them can go online. If they can be auto-evaluated, let's say not the essay types, but there are tools, we sort of also worked on this, wherein, students can write on the piece of paper, but then it gets scanned through the mobile app and it gets uploaded online. The benefit of that is that you do not have to archive papers anymore after that. One, you have already used the usage of paper because all other kind of examinations which can be evaluated quickly are going online, saving a lot of teachers' time. But others can also be evaluated online, so that you don't have to wear gloves when you are evaluating them. You just do it on your mouse. So with that, going to Mr. Khan. What do you think? What do you think about exams, structuring, everything else, and how is your university in particular is adopting to this, and what are your views?
With regards to our university, we are actually in the blended learning from last 10 years. So we are offering courses in this. So we are pretty in a good shape with regards to technology, infrastructure, and because of our board and management, this is our focus and priority. So with regards to our own university, I don't see a big issue because that's the direction we are going, and technology is one of our actually focus areas. In generally, based on what you were saying, I think I can think of two things. One is credibility of assessment, because there are a lot of concerns about online assessment, especially to stop cheating in many areas. What is the credibility of this online assessment? And the second one is the acceptability from the authorities about this one. I think everybody is learning. This is a new way. It will take some time for people to adopt this. It will take some time for example, the authorities to work on this digitalization. As it was mentioned before, that I read that UAE is now from government services fully digitized. Really good message. If other countries will do, for example, Pakistan is focusing a lot on technology now. It will take time, but at least they are prioritizing this one. In other countries also, I have seen the same thing. But I think at the same time, from the technology providers or vendors or startups, it's a great opportunity for them also, right? When I said previously, seamless experience, right? There are so many learnings still needs to happen. For example, how they can create this credibility so that the students feel like accomplished, and then the teacher is confident that whatever I'm getting is genuine, right? This feel of credibility. How we can provide the solutions so they are cost effective for the governments to implement and easy to use. For example, the user-centric approach, citizen-centric approach, right? I will give you an example. In my previous University of Central Asia, we implemented blockchain technology for accessing and verifying online degrees, for any of our students. So they can go anywhere, they can access and verify their degrees online. Yes, perfect, it's working. But then there are a lot of universities or governments, they don't accept this. They only accept to see the paper so that they can see and witness and sign, right? So one thing is how institutions are adopting, and one thing is how overall structure needs to gradually adopt these technology, right? So I think there is a good pace at the moment. There is an excellent opportunity for startups, for new technology companies to come up with all those human-centric examination systems. There's a lot of potential into that, but at the same time, I think there is a lot of potential from the governments, from the institutions to adopt, to be ready and to start trusting on these technological changes and start adopting these ones, because that is the future for us if we really want to get out of the value. And in addition, you see there is so many challenges of the environment, climate change, COP 15, 16, now is COP 25 or 26 going on. And every time all the heads of states, they are talking about the increasing challenges. So I think some of those challenges can also be addressed here if we can do the right approach of paperless operations, paperless result examinations, and it will ultimately improve this whole thing also.
True. I think, credibility or academic integrity that we always talk about, there's a school of thought which believes that proctoring is brutal, but there's a school of thought which also believes that proctoring is essential. Of course, we need to have something which is less intimidating, which is more user-friendly, but it's also effective. So I think, this is definitely one space. And in fact, we have been working on this on WAC's Digital Innovation Lab, and that's what we have already built. And we do support a lot of universities in creating those ecosystems where they can actually create a system, a network of assessments, which could be even open book exams. You also need to innovate here. I mean, like a lot of times we think that, okay, how do we really evaluate learning? So not just mastery assessments or continuous assessments or diagnostic assessments. So testing is not always the best way to doing that. Maybe we really need to innovate there. So it's going to be at an intersection of good technology, definitely a lot of innovation in the way we assess. Maybe we really need to do away with a lot of assessment tools and the pedagogical approach that we have towards assessment. But I think, yes, technology does play a crucial role there. It's a great opportunity for a lot of people who are working in this ecosystem. But I think that's really happening. We're definitely doing a lot of that at the World Assessment Council and also at Aurora. So yeah, very exciting there. Coming to the next part and probably the last piece on this, we have another 15 to 20 minutes to go on this session. So my next question is, we understand blended learning is important. We understand it has multiple benefits at all levels. We understand it is the future. We understand it's difficult to stay relevant without it. My next question is, we are implementing it. It is broken. We have really learned. A lot of us have really burnt our fingers. I can tell you there are multiple scenarios where there has been a lot of embarrassment for institutions, for universities, because they have been doing it at scale, 4,000, 5,000, 20,000 people, and you have to manage all of that. It has been chaotic. What do you see are the biggest challenges currently? And what do you see are the ways to sort of address them when we really want to build a university which is truly empowering students, the current students, and also potential students, be it 100% on campus or otherwise online or in whatever sort of mode that we want to implement it? What do you see are the challenges and how do we address them? Dean.
Big question. I think there's a couple of things. Number one, let's talk about IT departments, and let's talk about them having the ability and the staff and the ability to train. That has been a growing part of all this, and it will continue to grow. And that universities need to understand that that is a big part of this, and that they need the commitment, the financial commitment, the ability to experiment, to be able to find new devices. A lot of things we've talked about, examinations and things, there are softwares out there that do these things. They're also very expensive. And the ability to work as CIOs together, as people, and furthermore, be able to form consortiums, whether through their governments or through their multi-institutional organizations, to be able to drive price, I think is important. But more important to me is the ability to commit to this with faculty, that faculty and training and the ability to learn how to use this, and I use this word very carefully, to learn how to do distance learning and blended learning. It's a tool in teaching, no more, no less. It is still the star, quite frankly, in my opinion, is still the faculty member and their ability and their drive and their enthusiasm to be able to teach, but to be able to work with them and be able to use these tools. And once people, even resistors, find new ways to do things, they'll embrace. So I have to me, that means more training, that means more commitment, quite frankly, encouragement, maybe reductions in teaching loads, because it's not easier. It is a different way of doing things, so people have to adapt. And I think those are things. And one last point I'd like to bring up, my other concern is that we could look at this and go, this is great. Let's do everything online. And I think that could be, in a lot of cases, a fatal mistake, that we have to remember the difference between an undergraduate student and a graduate student. The concept of networking, human interaction, they all blend together, just like learning blends together.
Sure.
So I would also say that as part of the caution as we do all these different things.
No, that's true, absolutely. Because 10 years ago, I vividly remember that when these kinds of technology and tools and especially platforms like the Khan Academy, Coursera, and then of course the edX and whatnot, when they came, people said that face-to-face learning will definitely go away. Universities will be killed. And 10 years down the line, we see that universities are going strong. And of course, what I see is there's no competition. I think it's true. We should not really see it as a war between online and offline. Like you said, it is a tool, no more, less, no, not more, not less. I think so. What we need to understand is that, okay, we need to enhance our capabilities. This is an enabler, not something that we do or do not do. It's like, whatever that we're doing currently, we always look at, so for instance, why did we ever implement an SIS, or student information system in university? We could have simply done paperwork, was great, and we were doing it. We could have managed it, but we implemented it because we saw efficiency in doing that. Similarly, for educators, of course, educators will always be at the center of learning. He or she is the hero of learning, and that should always be. But a hero also comes with a lot of tools, great weapons, or tools, or whatever, to save the world. So I think, as a superhero, as an educator, these tools would really help them, be more efficient, be more quick, be more fast, and probably focus more where they can actually make an impact. A teacher is not really able to spend time with students who need them more, or really work on those things where he doesn't have to really repeat the whole stuff, which a lot of mundane tasks and a lot of that. So get rid of all of that. Be more focused on what essentially a teacher or an educator should be doing. And I think these technology tools, blended learning or technology, can really help you do that. So I completely agree with you once again. Educate, there's no threat. It's an enabler. Just work together. There may be resistance, but I think people understand the value of it. And because of that, it may take time to adapt to it. But yes, the resistance is decreasing, and it only has great things to happen, and it's right. That note, Professor Singh,
yeah,
you have been a little quiet there. So what do you think, sir? Like, what are the key challenges, and what do you see as your own university? You're the Vice Chancellor of a very prominent university in India. What do you see? Like, what are the challenges? I'm sure you must have spoken to so many vendors during this time. I'm sure you would have faced issues with your teachers, with your students, not having great experience. What do you see are the ground level challenges?
The basic ground level challenges are the requirement of the infrastructure, as well as training of the faculty members, training of the student. These are the major challenges, because on the part of a university, the resources requirement, it can be managed by any university. But in the post-pandemic era, as the globalization is the major role, in that each part of the faculty member, student, and the institution or university they have to prove themselves on the globalization level. If they don't have the quality on their student, in the quality of their teacher, it will be majorly affect the future prospect of any university. So this is the major demand, but on the ground level, it takes some time, sir. But in some period of time, it will be managed by the faculty members, institution, and the student also. But major thing is that the requirement resources of infrastructure, IT infrastructure, and the thought process of the student also. Because in the self-learning mode, or we can say as a blended learning mode, every student should be more specific about their future prospect and their learning criteria. Because in the face-to-face learning, faculty members are available on their classroom, but on the online mode, they have to self-focused. So these are the major challenges for part of a blended learning.
Okay, so of course, the blended learning can also be implemented in multiple ways. One is where you use it in your in-person classrooms as well. So it's not like it is 100% self-paced. It could be self-paced as well. I think we lost Dr. Mona Nasr. Let me admit her. So of course, it's not like we have to do it 100% online or in a self-paced learning mode. It can also be complementary to what you're doing. I'll give you an example. There's a concept called flipped classrooms. Now, what is flipped classrooms? Flipped classrooms means that before the student comes to the class, he should be able to access all your content, go through it completely. Even if the teacher has recorded their own lectures, they should be able to go through all of that so that they do not have to go through that same process in the class. And the classroom time, when the students are spending time with the teacher, they can actually be used more for Q&A or answering questions, clearing doubts, and those kind of things, which has seen a lot of potential and a lot of efficacy, and students able to understand that content better. What happens in a class, think about it. I am a teacher, I come to the class and I teach. It's not recorded. Students have no access to it. They take notes. If they have it, it's good. If they don't, they lose it. If they miss a class, they 100% miss it. Nobody can really replicate that experience. But when you have that content available to me, even when I just start this course, I have everything available to me. So I can come prepared to my classrooms and I can use that time to really understand and better grasp the concept. So I always have that available to myself. So I think, yes, I'm sure your university would also be experimenting, exploring these kinds of things. Will be very valuable to the whole student and educator learner experience. Mr. Khan, I think Professor Nasr is facing some issues. Mr. Khan, what do you think are the key challenges as a CIO? I'm sure you speak to so many technology companies, vendors, and you evaluated a lot of stuff. Enlighten us. Where do you see the challenges? Professor Nasr, I will come back to you. Professor Nasr, I'll come back to you after Mr. Khan.
Okay, sorry, because the disconnection that happened, I connect from another device. For that, I did not power on the video. Do you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. It's okay.
Yes.
So
yes. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. First of all, shifting to a virtual life need some sort of
Professor Nasr, actually, I would come to you. I was addressing this question to Mr. Khan. Once he addresses this question, I'll come to you with the same question. Yes, Mr. Khan, please.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very interesting one, and just based on the discussions we have, I just want to comment that, and then I will comment this one. One is that complete online also, we reflected that also, right? During the complete lockdowns, we reflected, and we come to the conclusion that this is not going to work. Complete online is also it's challenging. So the blended is the only way forward. So some of the challenges I see is that sometimes we, technology people and other people, we don't think about the actual users of these technologies, right? And those users are faculty and students. I think our solutions should address the needs of faculty and then the needs of students. And because of that, a lot of really, really well-known professors, very, very good academic people, they're not comfortable in using technology because it's either more complex. So we don't get out of the 100% of these knowledgeable people because they are not comfortable in using this one. So this could be a continuous challenge until we gradually solve this issue, so that the technology should be able to leverage 100% of the experience, where they are more comfortable in lecturing in the class than on technology. I think that part would be equal, and not only in the use of technology, but also the quality of delivery, right, of what they want to do. The second one is, I think we talk about technology, we talk about digitalization and everything. It's also equally important to consider and to invest equal cost and prioritize in your budgets. Until we will not put with our ambitions with the required budgets, it's not going to work, because everything costs, and then we need to put the right cost for that. The third one is the capacity building of our people, right? And if we really need to put right focus on the training, because we need to realize that this is a new talent, new skills we need, right? And those new skills require a lot of trainings so that they can use these parts. So with the combination of solutions which are user-centric, and here users are students and faculty, with the combination of right funding or investments, and then the capacity building, we can gradually tackle this issue, in my opinion.
Absolutely, rightly said. I think one of the key areas here is to address that it really doesn't matter which car is it. Of course, you need a good car, but what matters is who is the driver. Is he trained or not? So I think, we really need to train our drivers, which are the educators on campuses. We really need to have tools which, of course, are very efficient, but they also understand how the users are going to use it. It should be lovable, it should be easy, it should be quick for people to understand. It should not be confusing. Of course, so a great user experience, we call it UI UX. So the great user experience, great onboarding, quicker onboarding, I think those are very important things which ensure that the user, at the end of the day, of course, CIOs can make the decision, they can take the call on the cost and everything, but the end user has to have least resistance when they implement it. Professor Nasr, now I'm coming to you. What do you think? Same question. What are the challenges? How are you addressing them? How is your university responding to them? Yeah, your take.
Okay. Converting to the virtual world, most of the system and most of the people using the system, according to the different roles, the educators and the student, there must be some sort of science be included in this process, psychology and sociology, because the students may be working in individually, maybe have working with less stress, maybe they have no motivation to do their task well. So we need to involve in the learning management system and the educational life, how to manage to work with a student in some sort of group, to make a student that have not good ability to get the knowledge to be motivated with another one, and after that, like doctor say, the capacity building, invest more in the new technologies and in some sort of type of new technologies for assessment for the student more, and also the availability of the resources and the material for the student after the lecture, and after that, from my point of view, we must focus more about the student, how to let the student focus more on his studies, because I see a big challenge that many students maybe open the lecture, open the camera, and going to do something else, maybe chatting with his friend, maybe playing game. So we must motivate the student and involve another science in the cycle and in our educational life, to motivate the student that he love what he study.
True. I think those definitely are the challenges, and we definitely have learned a lot in implementing, whether it is 100% online classes, or whether it was examinations, or whether it is some sort of other online collaboration, apart from whatever digital things, initiatives that we are doing in our university. And true capacity building is really essential and important. I think that's what needs to be addressed upfront when we are thinking about our digital strategies. I think we had a great time today. Last 1 hour, we really talked about blended learning, challenges, and everything. And I'm sure everybody who was part of this conversation, who was listening to this, and others who will be watching this on our channels, would really appreciate the discussion, and maybe it helps them in some way or the other. We really look forward to collaborating with everyone here in this panel in ways more than one, as World Assessment Council. A little shout out to every university and educational institution. World Assessment Council does help you with your digital capacity building, and help you with your own strategy. We also give digital credits, anything from $10,000 to $25,000, to help you build the right kind of digital experience that is required for a greater student and teacher experience. With that note, I thank everyone for being part of this conversation. It was great to have everyone on Educators this week. We'll reach out to you in ways more than one, and happy to collaborate and happy to celebrate digital with everyone.
Thank you very much. You did a great job as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.